The slap came on a Friday. I remember because Fridays used to be my favorite day. The day I'd make Ryan's favorite chocolate chip pancakes for breakfast, send him off to school with a kiss on his forehead, and spend the afternoon preparing pot roast for dinner, the kind that fills the whole house with that rich, savory smell that makes a place feel like home. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up, because you need to understand how I got here, standing in my son's living room in suburban Georgia, my cheeks still burning from where my 10-year-old grandson's hand had just connected with my face. My name is Josephine Morrison. I'm 67 years old, though most days my knees remind me I might as well be 80. I've been a widow for 8 years now, 8 years since Frank died in his sleep, leaving me with a house too big for one person and a heart that still reaches for him in the middle of the night. When Brandon, my son, called me 2.5 years ago, his voice had that careful tone people use when they're about to ask for something big. Mom, Chloe and I were thinking, the kids are getting older, and with your house being so big, now that Dad's gone, maybe you'd want to be closer to us. We found this great place, but it's a bit of a stretch financially. What he didn't say, what he carefully danced around, was that they needed help. Brandon worked in sales, decent money, but unpredictable. Chloe had her influencer marketing consultant business, which, as far as I could tell, meant she spent 6 hours a day taking pictures of her coffee and posting motivational quotes she found on Pinterest. How much of a stretch, I'd asked, already knowing I'd say yes. He's my only child. After Frank died, Brandon was all I had left. If we had another $280,000 for the down payment, we could make it work. But Mom, I'm not asking you for, give me your account number. The next day, I transferred $280,000 from the sale of the house Frank and I had built together in Savannah. 3 bedrooms, 2 acres of garden, where I grew tomatoes so sweet you could eat them like apples. I sold it for $740 to $1,000 and didn't think twice about giving Brandon nearly half. He cried on the phone, Mom, I can't accept this. It's already done, sweetheart. Your father would have wanted you to have it. What I didn't know then, what I wouldn't find out until much later, was that Brandon never told Chloe where that money came from. He let her believe they'd saved it themselves, 2 hard-working young parents scraping by. I suppose he thought he was protecting me from feeling obligated, from being treated like a charity case. Instead, I became one anyway. I moved into their house 3 months after they closed on it. The smallest bedroom at the end of the hall, the one that had been earmarked for a future home gym that Chloe talked about but never actually set up. 10 by 12 feet, enough space for a twin bed, a small dresser, and the rocking chair Frank made for me when I was pregnant with Brandon. It's just temporary, Brandon had said, carrying in my suitcases, until you figure out what you want to do next. That was 2.5 years ago. The routine settled in quickly, like sediment at the bottom of a glass. I'd wake at 5:30 before the rest of the house stirred, make coffee the good kind I brought from my savings because Chloe only bought the cheap store brand. I'd sit in the pre-dawn quiet, listening to the house breathe, and remember when I used to wake up next to Frank, his soft snoring a comfort rather than an annoyance. By 6, I'd start breakfast. Ryan liked his eggs scrambled with cheese toast cut diagonally. Chloe wanted egg whites only, no carbs, before 10. Brandon would eat anything I put in front of him, the same way he had since he was 5 years old. At 7:30, I'd drive Ryan to Prestwood Academy, the private school 40 minutes away. The tuition was $200 to $800 a month, something Chloe mentioned frequently, usually in the context of their sacrifices and investments in quality education. What she didn't mention, what nobody talked about, was who actually paid that tuition. It started 4 months after I moved in. Brandon and Chloe were in the kitchen, voices low but tense, the kind of argument that happens in whispers so the child doesn't hear. We can't afford both the mortgage and the school, Chloe was saying. Something has to give. We're not pulling him out. He's finally making friends. His reading scores are up. Then what do you suggest, Brandon? Because I've cut everything I can cut. I'd walked in with my laptop, set it on the counter. How much is the tuition? They'd both looked at me like I'd appeared out of thin air. Mom, we can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. Your father left me comfortable. Let me do this for Ryan. Chloe's face had done something complicated, relief and resentment fighting for space. We couldn't possibly. Consider it done. I set up the automatic transfer that night. $200 to $800 on the first of every month straight from my investment account to Prestwood Academy. I didn't tell them, the details didn't mention that I had over $800,000 growing quietly in mutual funds and bonds. That kind of information only complicates things. For 2 years and 8 months I paid 32 consecutive payments. Not once did Brandon or Chloe say thank you, but I didn't need them to. I was doing it for Ryan, for my grandson, with Frank's gray eyes and my mother's stubborn chin. Except, somewhere along the way, things shifted. It was small at first. Chloe asking me to pick up her dry cleaning while I was out. Brandon leaving his laundry in a heap outside my door, assuming I'd wash it. Ryan getting used to me doing his homework with him every night, then getting annoyed when I had other plans. Where are you going? He'd demand, hands on his hips like a tiny dictator. Just to the library, sweetheart. But who's going to help me with my math? Your parents are right there. Dad's working, Mom's busy with her content. He said it like it was obvious, like my time was somehow less valuable than theirs. I started to notice the language shifting. Brandon would say, can you, less and less replaced with, you need to. Chloe stopped asking if I minded babysitting and just texted me their schedule. Gone until 8. Ryan needs dinner and bath. I was no longer the grandmother who visited. I was the help who happened to live there. But I told myself it was fine. Family is complicated. Everyone's under stress. They don't mean to take me for granted. And then came that Friday. It was 4:47 in the afternoon. I remember because I just checked the pot roast another 30 minutes and was setting the table when Ryan came home from school. The front door slammed hard enough to rattle the picture frames in the hallway. I heard his backpack hit the floor with a thud, followed by the distinctive sound of him kicking off his shoes without untying them first. Ryan, honey, could you pick up your bag? I called from the dining room, folding napkins the way my mother taught me, crisp triangles that stood up on the plates. No response, just the sound of the TV clicking on volume, cranked up to that level that makes your teeth hurt. I walked into the living room. Ryan was sprawled on the couch, iPad in one hand, TV remote in the other, shoes creating mud marks on the cream-colored cushions Chloe had just had professionally cleaned last month. Sweetheart, shoes off the couch, please. And we talked about screen time before homework. You're not my mom. The words came out sharp, practiced, like he'd been saving them up. I kept my voice gentle. No, I'm your grandmother, and in this house we have rules about, you don't make the rules, this isn't even your house. Something in my chest tightened, but I pushed through. Ryan, I know you're tired, but that's not how we speak to each other. Please pick up your backpack and... No! He threw the iPad onto the couch and stood up, his face, red eyes defiant. 10 years old and already perfecting that look of contempt that used to break my heart when I saw it in grocery stores, some other child screaming at their exhausted parent. I'm going to count to 3, I said, using the voice that used to work when Brandon was little, firm but not angry. 1, 2, I didn't get to 3. Ryan's hand came up faster than I would have thought possible. The slap connected with my left cheek, right across the bone, hard enough that I heard it before I felt it. Crack. Time did that thing where it slows down and speeds up simultaneously. I felt the heat spread across my face, felt my head snap slightly to the side from the force of it. My pearl earring, the one Frank gave me for our 30th anniversary, came loose and fell, bouncing once on the hardwood floor before rolling under the TV console. For a moment, neither of us moved. Ryan's hand was still raised, his expression shifting from anger to shock to something that might have been fear. My cheek throbbed in time with my heartbeat. I could feel the heat of it, the sting that promised a bruise by morning. From behind me, I heard Brandon's laugh. Not a gasp, not a shout, a laugh. "Mom, you okay?" he called from his position on the recliner, where he'd apparently been the whole time scrolling through his phone. "He's just playing around. You're being too sensitive." Too sensitive. Those words hit harder than Ryan's hand. I turned slowly to look at my son, my baby boy, the one I'd rocked through colic and night terrors, the one I'd worked 2 jobs to put through college. He was smiling, not meanly, just that absent, placating smile people give when they want you to stop making a fuss. "Did you see what just happened?" My voice came out quieter than I intended. "Ryan's just being dramatic. He's 10. They're all dramatic at 10. He hit me, Brandon." "Oh, come on, it wasn't that hard." The click of heels on hardwood announced Chloe's entrance. She was holding her phone, of course, the way some people hold rosaries. As she took in the scene, me with my hand on my cheek, Ryan frozen, Brandon scrolling, something flickered across her face. Not concern, something else. She started to clap, slow, deliberate claps that echoed in the suddenly silent room. "Wow, Ryan." Her voice dripped with mock enthusiasm. "Standing up for yourself. I'm so proud." I stared at her, my brain struggling to process what I was hearing. "Chloe," Brandon started, but she talked over him. "No, seriously. Grandma needs to learn she can't just boss people around." She turned to me, her smile sharp. "If you're so tough, hit him back, but you won't dare, because you know what would happen." The room tilted, not physically, but in that way where suddenly everything you thought you knew reorganizes itself into a new, uglier configuration. My daughter-in-law had just encouraged my grandson to hit me. My son had laughed, and now they were both standing there waiting for my response, expecting me to. What apologize, laugh it off, pretend it was fine. "It's okay," I heard myself say. My voice sounded far away, like it was coming from the bottom of a well. "It's okay, sweetheart." But it wasn't okay. Something inside me cracked, not broke, but cracked the way ice cracks right before it shatters. Ryan was crying now, confused by the adults' reactions, not sure if he was in trouble or being praised. I wanted to comfort him, to pull him close and tell him hitting was wrong, that we don't hurt the people we love. But I couldn't, because his parents were right there teaching him the exact opposite lesson. I bent down slowly, my knees protesting, and retrieved my earring from under the TV console. The pearl was cool in my palm, the gold setting slightly bent where it had hit the floor. Frank's voice echoed in my memory. "Pearls for my pearl." When I stood back up, Brandon had already returned to his phone. Chloe was taking a selfie in the hall mirror, angling for the light. Ryan had grabbed his iPad and was wiping his eyes, the drama already forgotten. I walked to the kitchen on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else, set my earring on the counter, turned off the pot roast, let it burn for all I cared. My hands were shaking. Through the doorway, I could hear them, the TV volume going back up, Chloe's artificial laugh as she recorded something for her Instagram, Brandon asking Ryan about his day casual, as anything like the last 5 minutes had never happened. I looked down at my hands, 67 years old, liver spots I tried not to notice, veins that stood out blue against pale skin. The same hands that had changed Brandon's diapers, held him through flu and heartbreak, signed away nearly half my life savings so he could have this house. These hands were shaking. I touched my cheek. The heat had settled into a deep ache. In the window's reflection, I could already see the redness spreading, the promise of purple by tomorrow. No one came to check on me. No one apologized. No one even seemed to notice I'd left the room. And that's when I understood I had become invisible in this house. Not a grandmother, not even a person, just a convenience, a free babysitter, a cook, a cleaning service with a pulse. But I wasn't powerless. I was just quiet. There's a difference. That night, after they'd all eaten the pot roast I'd left in the oven, no one mentioned that I hadn't joined them after the dishes were done by me, and Ryan was in bed, teeth brushed by me, story read by me. I sat in my small room at the end of the hall, 10 by 12 feet, a lifetime compressed into 120 square feet. The rocking chair creaked softly as I moved back and forth, back and forth. On my dresser, catching the moonlight through the blinds, was a photograph of Ryan as a newborn, 2 days old, wrinkled and red, his tiny fingers wrapped around my pinky while I held him in the hospital chair. My little sunshine, I'd called him that day. Brandon had laughed, said it was too early to tell if he'd be sunny, but I'd known. I'd seen it in his eyes. The Ryan in that photograph wouldn't have hit his grandmother, but the Ryan in this house raised by parents who laughed at cruelty and rewarded disrespect, what would he become? My laptop sat on the bed waiting. I'd been avoiding it all evening, but I couldn't anymore. I opened it slowly, the blue glow illuminating my small room, logged into my bank account, the one I'd set up after Frank died, the one where his life insurance and our savings had grown quietly for 8 years. Current balance $892, 447.63. I stared at that number for a long time, nearly $1 million, more money than my parents had seen in their entire lives, more money than I needed really for a woman living in a 10 by 12 room at the end of her son's hallway. I clicked on the Scheduled Payments tab. There it was, Prestwood Academy, $800. Next payment scheduled for the 1st of next month, 11 days away. My finger hovered over the mouse. Memories cascaded through my mind like falling dominoes. Frank's funeral. Brandon standing next to me, his hand in mine, both of us crying as they lowered the casket. "I've got you, Mom," he'd whispered. Always. Ryan's first day at Prestwood, his backpack almost as big as him, his nervous smile. "Will you pick me up, Grandma?" Every day sunshine, every single day. Last Christmas, opening presents in this very living room. Brandon had given me a candle. Chloe had given me nothing. Ryan had given me a drawing he'd done in school, a stick figure family, with Grandma written in purple crayon. I'd cried. Chloe had rolled her eyes. Yesterday, Chloe on the phone with her mother, voice low but not low enough. "Yeah, she's still here. I don't know, it's like she has nowhere else to go. Must be lonely being that old." That word, old, like it was something shameful, something less. I touched my cheek. The bruise had darkened, a purple shadow blooming along my cheekbone. In the mirror across from my bed, I could see myself, a 67-year-old woman with gray hair and sad eyes, sitting alone in a room that wasn't hers, in a house she'd helped buy, paying for a child's education while his parents taught him it was acceptable to hit her. Frank's voice came to me then, clear as if he were sitting in the room. "Josie," he used to say, "you've got to teach people how to treat you." I'd taught them all right. I'd taught them that I was expendable, replaceable, useful only for what I could provide. The cursor blinked on the screen. Cancel payment, yes, no. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. This was Ryan's education, his future, his friends, his advanced math classes, his art program that he loved. But it was also the symbol of everything wrong in this house. The money they took for granted, the sacrifices they didn't acknowledge, the grandmother they didn't respect. I thought about Chloe clapping, Brandon laughing, Ryan's hand connecting with my face. I thought about the $280,000 I'd given them for this house. The $280,000 Brandon had hidden from his wife, letting her think they'd earned it all themselves. I thought about being invisible. My finger trembled over the mouse, then steadied. I clicked. Payment canceled. Confirmation email sent to your address. Just like that. 29 seconds to undo 32 months of support. I closed the laptop and sat in the darkness listening to the house settle around me. Somewhere down the hall I could hear the TV still on in the living room. Chloe's laugh, Brandon's lower voice responding. They had no idea what I'd just done. I should have felt guilty, or scared, or something other than what I actually felt, which was calm. Strangely, deeply calm. For the first time in 2.5 years, I'd made a decision about my own money that had nothing to do with making someone else's life easier. The money in that account, it wasn't just numbers. It was Frank's life insurance. It was the house we'd built together. It was the nest egg he'd left me saying, "Take care of yourself, Josie. You've spent a lifetime taking care of everyone else." I'd been honoring Frank by giving it all away. But Frank had also said, Don't let people mistake kindness for weakness. I pulled the photograph of baby Ryan off my dresser, held it close. I'm not doing this to hurt you, sunshine, I whispered. I'm doing this to save you. Because if you grow up thinking this is acceptable, hitting people who love you, watching your parents mock them, you'll become someone I don't recognize. I placed the photo face down in my drawer, not discarding it, just putting it away. Sleep came surprisingly easily that night. I dreamed of the house in Savannah, the one Frank and I had built. In the dream, I was in the garden, and the tomatoes were so ripe they glowed like small suns. When I woke, my cheek was tender, but my conscience was clear. They'd learn soon enough. The next morning arrived with the soft light of early autumn, the kind of golden glow that makes you forget, just for a moment, that anything could be wrong in the world. I made breakfast as usual. Scrambled eggs for Ryan, egg whites for Chloe, coffee for Brandon. Set the table while they slept, laid out vitamins and orange juice, put fresh flowers in the center vase daisies from the grocery store, where I shopped alone because it was more efficient if I just went while dropping Ryan at school. When they stumbled in at their various times, Ryan first, always hungry. Brandon next, always distracted. Chloe last, always on her phone. I smiled and served them. Morning, Grandma. Ryan mumbled, his mouth already full of eggs. Good morning, sunshine. He didn't apologize for yesterday. Why would he? In his world, nothing bad had happened. Just another afternoon, another burst of temper, another adult who accepted his behavior with minimal consequence. Brandon kissed the top of my head on his way to the coffee pot. Chloe didn't acknowledge me at all, too busy staging a photo of her egg whites with the caption, "Protein Power, #wellness journey, #morning motivation." I sat with my own coffee, silent, observing. This was my life now, or rather, this had been my life for 2.5 years. The difference was that now I knew it had an expiration date. Mom, Brandon said, not looking up from his phone, can you take Ryan to soccer practice after school? Chloe and I have a thing. Not a question, a statement. Of course, I said. His eyes flicked to me, briefly noticing something. Your face okay? Looks a little bruised. My hand went automatically to my cheek, where the purple had deepened overnight. I'm fine. Good. Already back to scrolling. Ryan, finish your eggs. You're going to be late. The week passed like that, quietly, normally. I drove Ryan to school, picked him up, helped with homework, made dinners that Brandon and Chloe ate while discussing their days, their plans, their lives, always in the third person, as if I weren't sitting right there. But something had shifted inside me. Where before I might have felt hurt by their dismissiveness, now I felt detached, like a scientist observing an experiment, taking notes on human behavior. Day 3, Ryan demanded money for a video game skin. I said, ask your parents. He ran to Chloe, crying that I was being mean. Chloe shot me a look of irritation but said nothing directly. Day 5, Brandon left a pile of laundry outside my door. I stepped over it. 6 hours later, Chloe asked if I'd forgotten about it. I said I was busy with my own things. Her eyebrows went up, but she took the laundry herself. Day 7, Chloe asked me to pick up her dry cleaning. I said I had an appointment. An appointment, she repeated, like the concept of me having somewhere to be was foreign. Since when? Since always, I replied. She looked at me like I'd grown a second head. These small rebellions felt enormous. Each no was a tiny revolution. On day 8, I went to the bank. The manager, Patricia Chen, had known Frank and me for 20 years. She greeted me with a warm hug, then sat me down in her office with tea and those expensive cookies they keep for preferred clients. Josephine, it's wonderful to see you. What can I help you with today? I need to review my investment portfolio, I said. All of it, every account, every payment going in or out. Patricia pulled up my accounts on her computer, and we spent an hour going through everything. The life insurance payout that had grown to nearly $400,000, the proceeds from the house sale wisely invested in mutual funds, Frank's pension that still deposited monthly, my own modest retirement from 30 years as a pediatric nurse. You're in an excellent position, Patricia said. Very healthy portfolio. The automatic payment to Prestwood Academy just canceled, I see. Is everything all right? Everything is perfect, I said. I'm making some changes. Can you show me what my monthly income would be if I stopped all external payments and just lived on the interest and pension? She ran the numbers. Conservatively, about $8,000 a month. More if you're willing to draw down the principal slightly. $8,000 a month. More than enough to live on. More than I'd ever needed. And if I wanted to rent an apartment, I asked, something modest, 1 bedroom. Patricia smiled, planning a change, considering options. On my way home, I stopped at a bookstore, something I hadn't done in months, because there was always somewhere else to be, something else that needed doing. I bought 3 novels, a journal with a blue leather cover, and a coffee from the cafe inside. I sat in the sunshine streaming through the windows and read for 2 hours. No one called, no one texted asking where I was. When I got home at 5:30, Ryan was sitting on the front steps, looking annoyed. Where were you? I've been waiting for like an hour. Were you locked out? No, but. Then you were fine. Did you need something? He looked confused by the question. You always help me with math on Tuesdays. Not today, sweetheart. I was busy. Ask your father. I walked past him into the house, leaving him on the steps with his mouth hanging open. Brandon found me in my room 20 minutes later. Mom, what's going on? Ryan said you weren't helping with homework. I was at the bookstore. The bookstore? Yes, reading. Is there a problem? He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I recognized from his childhood. It meant he was frustrated, but trying not to show it. It's just, we count on you for these things. Perhaps, I said gently, you should count on yourselves a bit more. Something flickered in his eyes, confusion, maybe the first hint of unease, but the tuition bill hadn't come yet. They had no idea what was coming. I went back to my book, and after a moment, Brandon left. That night, lying in bed, I pulled up my email on my laptop. There it was, buried among the spam and store circulars from Prestwood Academy Finance Department, subject payment cancellation, confirmation. I read it once more just to be sure. Then I deleted it. Tomorrow was Tuesday. The bill would come at the end of the month, 10 days from now. 10 days for me to shore up my resolve. 10 days for them to keep taking me for granted. 10 days before everything changed. I closed my laptop and looked around my small room. Frank's rocking chair, the dresser with baby Ryan's photo hidden in the drawer, my suitcase in the closet, the same one I'd brought 2.5 years ago for what was supposed to be a temporary stay. What would you think of me, Frank? I whispered to the darkness. Am I being cruel? But I already knew what he'd say. Frank had never tolerated disrespect, not from anyone. Kindness without boundaries. He used to tell his med students when he was still teaching, isn't kindness, it's martyrdom, and martyrs don't help anyone in the long run. I wasn't a martyr. I was a woman who'd spent 67 years learning that love had to be matched with respect, or it became something toxic. The house settled around me, creaks and sighs, the whisper of people living separate lives under the same roof. From down the hall, I could hear Ryan playing video games, the tinny sound of explosions and victories. In 10 days, they'd understand that victories come with prices. In 10 days, the real lesson would begin. The letter came on a Monday morning, exactly 23 days after I canceled the payment. I knew it would arrive sometime this week. I'd been counting the days the way prisoners count down sentences, each morning bringing me closer to freedom or condemnation. I wasn't sure which. Monday mornings in the Morrison household had a particular rhythm. Chloe would be in the kitchen by 7, blending her green smoothie that smelled like lawn clippings and broken promises. Brandon would emerge around 7:15, already on his phone, coffee in hand. Ryan would stumble out last, requiring 3 wake-up calls and the threat of no screen time to get him moving. I was at the kitchen sink rinsing my teacup when I heard the mail truck rumble past. My heart kicked against my ribs like a wild thing trying to escape. I'll get it, I said, but no one was listening. The mailbox was at the end of the driveway, a ridiculous distance, in my opinion, but Chloe had insisted it looked more upscale than a box attached to the house. I walked slowly, feeling the cool October air on my face, watching leaves cartwheel across the lawn in shades of amber and rust. The stack was typical catalogs bills, advertisements for lawn services, and pizza delivery, and there near the bottom, a large white envelope with the Prestwood Academy crest embossed in navy blue. My hands didn't shake as I pulled it out. I'd been preparing for this moment for 23 days. I walked back to the house, placed the other mail on the counter, and set the Prestwood envelope on top where it couldn't be missed. Then I poured myself another cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table with my library book, a mystery novel about a woman who disappeared and started a new life in Portugal. Chloe swept into the kitchen 8 minutes later, phone already out, preparing to document her authentic morning routine for her followers. She was wearing workout clothes. She'd never work out in hair perfectly tousled in that way that takes 45 minutes to achieve. "Morning, Josephine," she said absently. "Not Mom, never that. Always my full name, like I was her elderly roommate rather than her mother-in-law." She grabbed the mail without looking at me, sorting through it with practiced efficiency. Bills discard pile, catalogs recycle, coupons maybe pile. Then she saw the Prestwood envelope. "Oh," her voice brightened. "It's from the school, probably about the fall gala. They're doing a Gatsby theme this year, and I've been working with the committee on the decor." She tore it open with her manicured nails, acrylics, always perfect, paid for, with money they supposedly didn't have. I kept my eyes on my book, but I wasn't reading anymore. I was listening. The sound of paper rustling, then silence, the kind of silence that takes up space, that presses against your eardrums. "What the?" Chloe's voice was barely a whisper. More silence. I could hear the kitchen clock ticking, the refrigerator humming, a car passing outside. Then, "What the actual fuck?" Brandon came running from the bedroom, still buttoning his shirt. What happened?" Chloe's face had gone from its usual foundation, perfect beige, to a deep, angry red. Her hands were shaking as she held out the letter. "Read this. Read this." Brandon took the paper, his eyes scanning quickly. I watched the color drain from his face like water down a sink. "This has to be a mistake," he said, but his voice wavered. "A mistake. A $14,000 mistake." Ryan appeared in the doorway, still in his pajamas, eyes wide. "Why is Mom yelling?" "Go to your room," Brandon said sharply. Ryan for once obeyed without argument. I turned a page in my book, though I hadn't absorbed a single word. Chloe snatched the letter back from Brandon, reading it aloud with increasing hysteria. "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Morrison, this is a formal notice regarding outstanding tuition for Ryan Morrison, grade 4. Our records show 0 payments received for the 2024-2025 academic year, August through December. Outstanding balance $14,000. Payment must be received by January 15, 2025, or Ryan's enrollment will be terminated." She looked up at Brandon, her perfectly applied mascara already starting to smudge. 0 payments, 0. "But the payments are automatic. They're supposed to—" Brandon was already pulling out his phone, fingers flying across the screen. "I'm calling the bank. This is insane. There's no way." "Wait," Chloe interrupted. "Who set up the automatic payments?" They both turned to look at me. I took a sip of my tea. Earl Grey, 2 sugars, just the way Frank used to make it for me on Sunday mornings. "Mom," Brandon's voice was careful, like he was talking to someone on a ledge. Did something happen with the tuition payments?" I set down my teacup with deliberate precision. "Oh yes, I canceled them." The words landed like stones in still water. "You what?" Chloe's shriek could have shattered crystal. "I canceled the automatic payments. 3 weeks ago, actually. I meant to mention it, but—" I shrugged. It must have slipped my mind. Brandon's phone slipped from his hand, clattering onto the counter. "Mom, you can't just— Why would you?" "Because," I said, my voice calm as glass, "I decided to stop paying for your son's education. Chloe's mouth opened and closed like a fish. You decided. Do you have any idea what you've done? Do you know how hard it was to get Ryan into that school? The waiting list, the interviews, Actually, I interrupted gently. I do know. I was there for the interview. I'm the one who drove him to the entrance exam. I'm the one who's been paying the tuition for the past 2 years and 8 months. Well, obviously, Chloe spat. We couldn't afford it ourselves, and you offered. I did offer, when you treated me like family. But somewhere along the way I became less like family and more like… I paused, choosing my words carefully. What was it you told your mother on the phone last week? The live-in help. Chloe's face went white. You were listening to my private conversation. Hard not to when you're talking in the hallway outside my room. Thin walls. Brandon held up his hands. Okay, everyone, just let's all calm down and… Calm down, Chloe whirled on him. Your mother just sabotaged our son's education, and you want me to calm down. I didn't sabotage anything, I said. I simply stopped subsidizing it. Ryan has 2 perfectly capable parents who can pay his tuition themselves. We can't pay it, Chloe's voice cracked. You know we can't pay it. The mortgage on this house alone is indeed substantial, I agreed, especially for a house that costs $7,000 to $20,000. Brandon's eyes went very wide. Mom, don't what, Brandon? Don't mention that I gave you $280,000 for the down payment. Don't mention that without my help, you'd be in a 3-bedroom rental somewhere instead of this showcase home with its upscale mailbox at the end of the driveway. The silence that followed was the kind that precedes earthquakes. Chloe turned to Brandon with the slow, mechanical movement of a horror movie villain. What did she just say? Chloe, I can explain. $280,000. Her voice was eerily quiet now, which was somehow worse than the shouting. Your mother gave you $280,000 and you never told me. Brandon's face had gone from pale to green. I was going to tell you, you were so proud of us for saving it ourselves, and I didn't want you to feel like we were charity cases, like we were being bankrolled by your mother. Chloe laughed, a harsh sound that had nothing to do with humor. Well, guess what, Brandon, we were. Chloe, please, don't. She held up a hand. Just don't. She turned to me and I saw something shift in her face. The anger was still there, but underneath it, something else, something that looked like shame. So what is this? She asked. Revenge. You're punishing us because Ryan got a little rough with you last month. Ryan didn't get a little rough, I said, and my voice was harder now. Ryan slapped me across the face hard enough to knock my earring out. And you clapped for him, Chloe. You applauded while my son laughed. Brandon's face crumpled. Mom, I didn't. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Brandon? I stood up, my tea forgotten. Tell me what it was like watching your 10-year-old son hit your mother and thinking it was funny. I thought he was just acting out. Kids do that. Kids act out when they're taught that disrespect has no consequences, when they see their parents treat their grandmother like an unpaid servant, when… We never treated you like a servant, Chloe interrupted. I laughed then, and it surprised all of us. Really? Let's review, shall we? Who makes breakfast every morning? Who drives Ryan to school and picks him up? Who does the grocery shopping, the cooking, the laundry? Your laundry, Chloe, including those delicate, hand-wash-only pieces you leave in a heap outside my door. You never said you minded. I shouldn't have to say it. I'm 67 years old, not your housekeeper. Then maybe you should move out, Chloe shouted. If you hate it here so much, if we're such terrible people, then leave. The words hung in the air like smoke. Brandon's face went even more pale. Chloe, she didn't mean… Actually, I said quietly, that's an excellent idea. Both of them stared at me. What? Brandon whispered. I've been thinking about it for a while now, getting my own place. Something small just for me. 1 bedroom, maybe a little balcony for plants. Mom, you can't be serious. Why not? I have the money. I have my independence. What I don't have is a family that respects me. That's not fair, Brandon said, and his voice cracked. like it used to when he was a teenager. We do respect you. Then why did you laugh when your son hit me? He had no answer for that. Chloe was breathing hard, her chest rising and falling under her designer workout top. Fine, great, move out. But what about the tuition? You're just going to leave Ryan without a school. Ryan has 2 parents. I'm sure you'll figure something out. With what money, Josephine? In case you haven't noticed, we're not exactly rolling in cash here. You seem to have enough for Chloe's acrylic nails and those expensive coffees you post about every morning. Chloe's jaw clenched. Those are business expenses. Business. I let the words sit there. Is that what we're calling your Instagram now? I'm building a brand. You're building a fantasy, I said, and my voice was sad rather than angry. A fantasy of a perfect life that you're funding with money you don't have, teaching your son values that will destroy him. Don't you dare lecture me about raising my son. Someone needs to, because right now you're raising a child who thinks violence is acceptable, who expects everything to be handed to him, who doesn't understand that money has to come from somewhere. Brandon stepped between us, hands up like a referee. Okay, this is getting out of hand. Let's all just take a breath and… No, I said firmly. No more taking breaths. No more smoothing things over. No more pretending everything is fine when it's not. I looked at my son, really looked at him, and saw the little boy who used to cry when he accidentally stepped on ants, who used to save his allowance to buy me flowers on Mother's Day, who used to tell me I was his best friend. When did you stop seeing me, Brandon? I asked softly, his eyes filled with tears. Mom, when did I become just a convenience to you, a bank account with a pulse? You're not. Then what am I? Tell me, when's the last time you asked me how I was doing? Not, are you okay to pick up Ryan? Or, can you make dinner? But actually asked about my life, my feelings, my dreams. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came. That's what I thought, I said. I walked past them both, heading toward my room. Where are you going? Chloe demanded. To make some phone calls. I have an appointment with a real estate agent this afternoon. Mom, please, Brandon called after me. Don't do this. We can work it out. I'll get a second job. I'll pay the tuition myself. I paused. In the doorway, turned back. It's not about the money, sweetheart. It never was. Then what is it about? It's about respect. It's about being seen. It's about refusing to accept crumbs from a table I helped build. Chloe made a sound like a wounded animal. You're going to ruin Ryan's life over your hurt feelings. No, I said calmly. I'm going to let his parents finally take responsibility for his life. There's a difference. I closed my bedroom door behind me, but not before I heard Chloe burst into tears and Brandon's broken voice saying, "What have we done?" The house became a war zone of silence. For the next week, Chloe didn't speak to me at all. She'd walk past me in the hallway like I was furniture, her jaw so tight I could see the muscles working. When we ended up in the kitchen at the same time, she'd leave immediately, taking her phone and her manufactured life with her. Brandon tried to play peacemaker, which mostly meant he looked miserable, and asked me repeatedly if I was sure about this. I'm sure, I'd say every time. But Mom, we can fix this. We can… Brandon, I'm sure. Ryan was confused. Children always sense when something is wrong, even when adults try to hide it. He'd hover in doorways, watching us all with those big gray eyes, trying to understand why Grandma wasn't helping with homework anymore, why Mom kept crying in her room, why Dad kept running his hands through his hair and muttering to himself. On day 3, Ryan knocked on my bedroom door around 8 o'clock. I was reading in bed, my new routine, escaping into other people's stories to avoid my own. Come in, sweetheart. He slipped inside, closing the door quietly behind him. He was wearing his dinosaur pajamas, the ones I'd bought him for his birthday last year. Grandma, his voice was small. Are you mad at me? I set my book down and patted the bed beside me. He climbed up suddenly, looking younger than 10 more, like the little sunshine I used to rock to sleep. No, baby, I'm not mad at you. Mom says we might have to change schools because of you. The words hit like a slap, but I kept my face calm. Your mom said that. He nodded miserably. She says you stopped paying for my school because I was bad. Oh, Chloe, using a 10-year-old as a weapon. Ryan, look at me. I waited until his eyes met mine. Do you remember when you hit me? His face crumpled. I didn't mean to hurt you that bad. But you did hurt me. And do you remember what your parents did? He looked down at his hands. Dad laughed. Mom said it was good I stood up for myself. And do you think that was right? A long pause. Then quietly, no. Why not? Because hitting is wrong. That's what they tell me at school. But at home it was okay, so I thought. You thought the rules were different at home. He nodded. I pulled him close, feeling his small body against mine, his head tucking under my chin, the way it used to when he was tiny. Here's the truth, sunshine. I stopped paying for your school because I needed your parents to understand something. Not because you were bad, but because they need to learn to be better parents. And I need to learn to stop letting people treat me badly just because I love them. So it's not my fault. It's absolutely not your fault. You're a child. You're learning. But adults, we have to learn too sometimes. He was quiet for a moment then. Are you leaving? I don't know yet, sweetheart. Maybe. I don't want you to leave. My eyes burned. I don't want to leave you either. But sometimes we have to make hard choices to teach important lessons. He pulled back to look at me. What lesson? That family is about more than just living in the same house. It's about respect and kindness and treating each other like we matter. You matter, Grandma. And there it was, the crack in my armor. I blinked back tears. Thank you, baby. That means more than you know. We sat like that for a while, just being together until Chloe's voice called from the hallway. Ryan, bedtime. He slipped off the bed, gave me a quick hug, and left. I didn't see Chloe for the rest of the night, but I heard her crying in their bedroom, heard Brandon's low voice trying to comfort her, heard her say something that made my blood run cold. Maybe he should just go stay with my mom for a while. Brandon, what, Chloe? No. Think about it. We can't afford the school. We can't afford childcare while we're both working, and your mother clearly doesn't want to help anymore. She never said that. She didn't have to. She's been freezing us out all week, and you know what, Fine? Fine. My mom in Florida said she'd take him anytime. At least there he wouldn't have to watch his family fall apart. I pressed my ear against the door, heart pounding. Brandon, you can't be serious. Send our son away because we're having financial problems. What choice do we have? We can't afford to keep him in private school. We can't afford childcare, and we clearly can't count on your mother anymore. So your solution is to ship him off to your mother, who you barely talk to. She's family, and she actually offered to help. Unlike some people, the words felt designed to reach me through the wall, designed to hurt, and they did. Day 10 arrived with frost on the windows and dread in my stomach. Friday. The deadline for Presswood's payment was Monday. Brandon and Chloe had spent the week frantically trying to secure a loan, calling, banks arguing with credit card companies, even posting a desperate plea on Chloe's Instagram, quickly deleted after brutal comments from her followers. Nothing had worked. That morning, the principal called. I was in the kitchen making oatmeal just for myself now. I'd stopped cooking for everyone else when Brandon's phone rang. I heard him answer, heard his voice go from hopeful to defeated in the space of 30 seconds. I understand. Yes, thank you for calling. He came into the kitchen looking like he'd aged 10 years overnight. Chloe followed, mascara already running even though it wasn't even 9 a.m. That was Principal Whitmore, Brandon said, not looking at me. He wanted to give us a courtesy call before the letter goes out. Ryan's spot has been given to the next family on the wait list, effective immediately. Chloe made a sound like a wounded animal. He said, Brandon's voice cracked. He said Ryan can finish out the week, but Monday he needs to be enrolled somewhere else. Brandon, I started, but he held up a hand. Don't, Mom. Please, just don't. He walked out. I heard the front door slam, then his car starting, driving away from the problem the way he always did when things got too hard. Chloe stood in the kitchen shaking. I hope you're happy. I'm not happy, Chloe. I never wanted. You never wanted what? To destroy our family. Because congratulations, mission accomplished. She was screaming now, years of resentment pouring out. You think you're teaching us some kind of lesson, but all you're doing is punishing a little boy for being a little boy. He hit me. And kids do that. Kids act out, but you're the adult. You're supposed to be the bigger person. I have been the bigger person for 2.5 years. I said, my voice rising to match hers. I've been quiet and helpful and invisible, while you two took and took and took. My money, my time, my dignity. Your dignity, your dignity. Chloe laughed bitterly. You want to know about dignity, Josephine? Let me tell you about my life before I met Brandon. She grabbed the counter like it was the only thing holding her up. I grew up in a trailer, a single wide in a park where the water didn't always work and the electricity got shut off twice a year. My mother cleaned houses. I wore clothes from Goodwill and got made fun of every single day at school. Her voice broke, but she pushed through. When I met Brandon with his college degree and his stable family and his dead father who left him money, not much but more than I'd ever seen, I thought I'd finally made it, finally escaped, finally became someone. Tears were streaming down her face now. And then you moved in. Perfect Josephine, with your perfect manners and your perfect recipes and your perfect life. And I felt like that trailer park girl again, not good enough, not educated enough, not classy enough. I stood very still, absorbing this. So yes, she continued, I was cruel to you. I made you feel small because you made me feel small. You didn't mean to maybe, but you did. Every time you corrected my grammar or rearranged my kitchen or looked at my Instagram like it was a joke instead of my job. I never. You didn't have to say it, Josephine. I could see it in your eyes, in your little sighs, in the way you'd take over every time I tried to do something maternal with Ryan, because your way was always better. She collapsed into a chair, sobbing. And now you've taken everything from us. The school, our dignity, our son's future. Are you satisfied now? Did you get your revenge? I sat down across from her, my own eyes wet. This was never about revenge, I said quietly, but it was about boundaries, about respect, about teaching Ryan and teaching both of you that love doesn't mean accepting abuse. Abuse! She looked up, mascara painting dark rivers down her cheeks. You think we abused you. I think you took me for granted. I think you let your son hit me and laughed about it. I think you spoke about me like I was an inconvenience instead of a person. I paused. But Chloe, I had no idea you felt inferior to me. That's not at all how I see you. She wiped her eyes. Then how do you see me? I thought about it. Really thought. I see a woman trying desperately to prove her worth through things that don't matter, expensive schools, Instagram followers, designer workout clothes, and I see a woman who's so afraid of being poor again that she can't admit when she needs help. I'm asking for help right now, she whispered. No, I said gently. You're asking me to fix a problem you created. That's different. So what do we do? Before I could answer, the door opened. Brandon came back in, followed by someone I didn't expect, Ryan. Mom, Brandon said, his voice thick. Ryan wanted to talk to you. Ryan walked over to me, his small face serious. In his hand, he held a piece of paper, a drawing done in crayon. I made this at school, he said, setting it on the table. Before I found out, I'm not going back. The drawing showed 2 stick figures holding hands under a bright yellow sun. One figure was labeled me and the other Grandma. I'm sorry I hit you, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. And I'm sorry I've been mean. Mom said you're teaching us a lesson about being nice to people we love, and I think maybe I didn't know how to be nice because no one showed me. He looked at his parents, then back at me. Can you teach me, please? And just like that, my carefully constructed walls crumbled. I pulled him into my arms and held him tight. This child who was both the problem and the innocent victim of adult failures. Oh, sunshine, I whispered. Of course I can. When I looked up, both Brandon and Chloe were crying. "I'm sorry, Mom," Brandon said. "I'm so sorry for all of it." Chloe nodded, unable to speak. The question was, what happened now? We'd reached the crisis point, the moment where everything either broke permanently or began painfully to heal. I looked at the three of them, my broken family, my complicated loves, my greatest joy and deepest pain. "Sit down," I said. "All of you, we need to talk." That night I couldn't sleep. The house was finally quiet. Brandon and Chloe had gone to bed. After hours of tense silence, Ryan tucked in and hopefully dreaming of something better than the chaos his family had become. But I lay in my small room staring at the ceiling, Frank's rocking chair creaking softly in the corner as if moved by a ghost. I'd won. That was the thing. I'd made my point, drawn my line in the sand, forced them to see me. So why did I feel so hollow? I got up, wrapped Frank's old cardigan around my shoulders, the one I'd kept even though it had holes in the elbows, and sat in the rocking chair. The moon was full outside my window, painting everything silver and shadow. On my dresser, Ryan's drawing stared at me, two stick figures holding hands, me and Grandma, in uneven letters across the top. My chest ached. Was I doing the right thing, or was I just a bitter old woman punishing people who'd hurt me, using a 10-year-old's education as collateral damage? I thought about Frank, really thought about what he would say if he were here. Josie, I could almost hear his voice, warm and slightly amused the way it got when he was about to tell me something I didn't want to hear. "You've always been the strongest person I know, but strength isn't about being hard. It's about knowing when to bend and when to break." "But they hurt me," I whispered to the empty room. "I know, my pearl, but you've hurt them too now. The question is what happens next." I pulled out the photograph I'd hidden in my drawer, baby Ryan, 2 days old, his tiny fingers wrapped around mine. That pure, perfect love before everything got complicated. "What kind of grandmother am I?" I asked the photo. What kind of person uses a child's future to make a point? But even as I asked it, I knew that wasn't quite fair. I wasn't using Ryan. I was trying to save him from becoming the kind of man who thought money grew on grandmothers' backs, who believed violence had no consequences, who measured worth in Instagram followers and designer labels. Still, my hands shook as I opened my laptop. My bank account glowed on the screen, $892, $447.63, enough to pay the tuition 100 times over, enough to solve this problem with one transfer, smooth everything over, go back to being invisible and useful and quietly martyred. My finger hovered over the transfer button, but something Frank said years ago stopped me, something I'd forgotten until this moment. We'd been at his sister's house for Thanksgiving, watching her adult children take and take while giving nothing back. On the drive home, I'd been furious on her behalf. "Why does she let them treat her like that?" I demanded. Frank had been quiet for a moment, then said, "Because she thinks that's what love looks like. But real love, healthy love, it requires two things, affection and respect. You can't build a lasting relationship on just one. Affection without respect." That's what I'd been living on for 2.5 years. I closed the laptop. No, I wouldn't solve this with money. Not this time. But there was a third option, something between giving in completely and walking away forever. A way to help them that didn't erase the lesson. A way to show love that still demanded respect. By the time the sun rose, I had a plan. I called the meeting for Saturday morning, 9 a.m. sharp. "Everyone in the living room, please," I said, my voice steady. "This won't take long." Brandon came first, looking like he'd aged a decade in a week. Dark circles under his eyes, his shirt wrinkled. Chloe followed, makeup-free for the first time since I'd met her, her hair in a messy bun. Ryan slipped in quietly, sensing this was important. They sat on the couch, the three of them together, me in the armchair across, like a negotiation, which I supposed it was. "I've been thinking," I began, my hands folded in my lap to keep them from shaking, "about what's happened, about what you said, Chloe, about what we've all done to each other." Chloe looked down. Brandon reached for her hand. And I've realized something, I continued. Walking away would be easy. Pretending nothing happened would be easier. But neither of those things would fix what's actually broken here. Mom, Brandon started, but I held up my hand. Let me finish. Please. He nodded. I took a deep breath. I'm not going to just pay the tuition and forget this happened. That wouldn't teach anyone anything. But I'm also not going to abandon you. You're my family. That means something even when it's hard. Ryan looked up hopefully. Does that mean I can stay at my school? Possibly, I said, but there are conditions. Chloe stiffened. Conditions? Yes, because if we're going to rebuild this family, we need to do it right. Not just throw money at problems, but actually fix what's wrong. I pulled out a piece of paper. I'd written everything down at 3 a.m., my handwriting shaky, but determined. Here's what I'm proposing. I will lend you $15,000, enough to cover the outstanding tuition and late fees. Not give, lend. Brandon's eyebrows shot up. Lend at 0% interest. You'll pay me back $500 a month for 30 months. That keeps Ryan in school, but it also teaches him that education has value, that money doesn't grow on trees, and that his parents are capable of taking care of their responsibilities. Chloe was shaking her head. We can't afford $500 a month. Then you'll need to make different choices, I said firmly. Fewer coffees for the Instagram. Maybe acrylic nails every 8 weeks instead of 6. Brandon takes the overtime shifts he's been turning down. You actually work on getting paying clients instead of just building your brand. Silence. That's condition 1, I continued. Condition 2, we all go to family therapy. 6 months minimum. Therapy? Brandon looked uncomfortable. This family is broken, sweetheart. We need professional help to fix it. We need to learn how to communicate, how to set boundaries, how to respect each other. I've already found a therapist who specializes in multi-generational families. Dr. Patricia Chen. First session is next Tuesday if you agree. You've already found someone? Chloe asked. I've been planning this conversation for 3 days. Yes. What else? Brandon asked quietly. Condition 3, Ryan does real chores. Takes out the trash, helps with dishes, makes his own bed. He needs to learn that everyone in a family contributes and that I'm not here to wait on him hand and foot. I looked at Ryan. Do you understand, sunshine? This isn't punishment. It's learning. He nodded seriously. I can do chores. Condition 4, I said, turning to Chloe. You and I have coffee together. Once a week, just the two of us. We need to understand each other. Build a real relationship instead of this adversarial thing we've had. Chloe's eyes filled with tears. Why would you want to spend time with me after everything I've said? Because you're my son's wife, Ryan's mother, and because I think under all the Instagram filters and the insecurity, there's a woman I might actually like if I got to know her. A sob escaped her throat. And the final condition, I said, my voice harder now, is that if anyone in this house ever disrespects anyone else the way I was disrespected, if there's hitting, mocking, cruelty, the deal is off. The loan is called. And I move out permanently. That's fair, Brandon said immediately. More than fair, Chloe whispered. I leaned forward. I need you to understand something. All of you. This isn't about the money. It never was. It's about creating a family where everyone matters, where respect goes both ways, where love doesn't mean just taking until there's nothing left to give. We understand, Brandon said, his voice thick. God, Mom, we understand. Do you? I asked. Because understanding is easy. Actually changing, that's the hard part. Ryan stood up suddenly and walked over to me. He climbed into my lap, too big for it really, all knees and elbows, and wrapped his arms around my neck. I'm sorry, Grandma, he whispered, for hitting you, for being mean, for not saying thank you for all the stuff you do. My eyes burned. I forgive you, sunshine. Can you teach me how to be good? I held him tight, this child who was both the problem and the hope. We'll all teach each other. That's what families do. When I looked up, Chloe was crying openly now, and Brandon had his head in his hands. So, I said quietly, do we have a deal? Brandon looked up, his eyes red. We have a deal. Chloe nodded, unable to speak. Then I'll make the transfer Monday morning, I said. And our first therapy session is Tuesday at 4 p.m. Don't be late. 3 months later. The Tuesday afternoon sun slanted through Dr. Patricia Chen's office windows, making golden rectangles on her cream carpet. We'd been coming here for 12 weeks now, 12 sessions of uncomfortable truths and harder conversations. Today felt different though, lighter somehow. So, Dr. Chen said, settling into her chair with her ever-present notepad. How was everyone's week? Better, Chloe said, and she actually smiled. A real smile, not the performance she used to give. Really better. Tell me about it. Chloe glanced at me, then at Brandon. I got a client, an actual paying client. A local restaurant wants me to manage their social media. It's not huge money, but it's legitimate work with a contract and everything. That's wonderful, Dr. Chen said. How does that feel? Sounds scary, Chloe admitted, but good, like I'm actually building something real instead of just performing. I reached over and squeezed her hand. I'm proud of you. She squeezed back, and the gesture felt natural now, not forced. Dr. Chen turned to Brandon. And you, I took Mom out to lunch last week, he said. Just the two of us. We talked about Dad, about my childhood, about everything. Stuff we should have talked about years ago. What did you learn? Dr. Chen asked. Brandon looked at me. That I'd been taking her for granted because I thought she'd always be there, always saying yes. I thought that's what mothers did, just kept giving forever without needing anything back. And now I know that's not love, that's exploitation. The word hung in the air. It was harsh, but true. Dr. Chen nodded. Ryan, do you want to share? Ryan, who'd been playing with a stress ball in the corner kids area, came over. He was different now, still 10, still energetic, but something had shifted in how he carried himself. I got the kindness award at school, he said proudly, and I made the honor roll. That's excellent. What changed? Ryan shrugged. I started trying, doing my homework myself instead of just asking Grandma to do it for me. And there was this kid, Marcus, who was getting bullied, and I remembered what Grandma said about being strong means protecting people, not hurting them. So I told the bullies to stop. And did they? Eventually, after I got the teacher involved. Dr. Chen smiled. That's very mature of you. Can I show Grandma something? Ryan asked. Of course. He pulled a folded paper from his backpack. We had to write about our hero for English class. He handed it to me, and I unfolded it with shaking hands. My Hero, Grandma Josephine, by Ryan Morrison. My hero is my grandma, not because she's perfect, but because she taught me something important. Last year, I hit her. I was mean and disrespectful, and she could have hit me back or yelled, but she didn't. She did something harder. She showed me that when people hurt you, you can choose to teach them instead of just hurt them back. My grandma is strong, not muscle strong, but heart strong. She stands up for herself even when it's scary. She tells the truth even when it's hard. She loves us even when we don't deserve it. But she also teaches us that love doesn't mean letting people be mean to you. It means showing them how to be better. I want to be like her when I grow up, strong and kind at the same time. By the time I finished reading, tears were streaming down my face. Oh, sunshine, I whispered, pulling him close. You already are. 1 month later, parent-teacher conference at Prestwood, Ms. Rodriguez, Ryan's teacher, smiled across her desk at us. All three of us had come, me, Brandon, and Chloe, and there was something significant about that, a united front. Ryan has shown remarkable growth this semester, Ms. Rodriguez said, not just academically, though his grades have improved significantly, but emotionally and socially. Really, Chloe leaned forward, really, he's become a natural leader. Last week, he organized a fundraiser for the local animal shelter entirely on his own initiative, raised over $200. Brandon's eyes went wide. He did. And when I asked him, why do you know what he said? We shook our heads. He said, my grandma taught me that people with enough should help people with not enough. Animals count too. I had to bite my lip to keep from crying again. There's something else, Ms. Rodriguez continued. She pulled out a drawing from her desk. We had an assignment about family. I thought you'd like to see his. The drawing showed 4 figures standing in front of a house. All of them were holding hands. At the top, in careful letters, "My family is learning to be better." That Saturday, coffee with Chloe, week 16, we'd settled into a routine, Chloe and I. Every Saturday morning, 9 a.m., at the little cafe 3 blocks from the house. She got her fancy latte, I got my simple Earl Grey, and we talked, really talked. Today, she looked nervous. "What's wrong?" I asked. She stirred her latte, not meeting my eyes. "I need to tell you something about why I was so awful to you when you first moved in." "You don't have to." "I do. I need to say this." I waited. "My mom," she said slowly, "was cruel. She told me every day that I was stupid, that I'd never amount to anything, that the only thing I had going for me was my looks. When I got pregnant with Ryan, she told me I'd ruin my life. Oh, Chloe, when I met Brandon, he was everything she said I couldn't have. Educated, stable, kind, and when you moved in this perfect mother figure who'd raised him so well, I panicked. I thought you'd see right through me, see that I wasn't good enough for your son. So you attacked first," I said gently. She nodded, tears spilling over. "I made you feel small because I felt small, and I'm so sorry." I reached across the table and took her hand. "I forgive you. But Chloe, you need to forgive yourself too. You're not your mother. You're a good mom who's learning to be better. That's all any of us can do." "I want Ryan to have what I didn't have," she whispered. "A mother who believes in him. He does have that. I see you with him now, the way you listen, the way you encourage him. You're doing it." She wiped her eyes. "You know what's funny? I spent so much time trying to prove I was successful by posting perfect pictures online. But the only time I've actually felt successful is these past few months doing the hard work of being real." "That's not funny," I said. "That's wisdom." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, sipping our drinks. "Thank you," she said finally, "for not giving up on us, for loving us enough to fight for us." "That's what family does," I said. 1 year later, Thanksgiving, the kitchen smelled like home turkey and stuffing and the apple pie I taught Chloe to make from scratch. Real butter, real apples, real love baked into every layer. Brandon was setting the table without being asked. Chloe was mashing potatoes following my recipe, occasionally asking questions. Ryan was making place cards carefully, writing everyone's name, including a card for Frank's chair. We'd started that tradition 6 months ago, setting a place for Frank at family dinners, a way to remember, to honor, to keep him present. "Grandma," Ryan called from the dining room, "is this spelling right?" I walked over to check. Perfect sunshine. The doorbell rang. "I'll get it." Ryan ran to the door and returned with Dr. Chen, whom we'd invited to join us. She'd become more than our therapist. She'd become a friend. "Welcome," I said, hugging her. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for having me. Something smells amazing." We gathered around the table, the 5 of us, plus Frank's empty chair. Brandon said, Grace, his voice steady, "We're grateful for second chances, for hard lessons, and for love that doesn't quit, for family that's brave enough to change, and for the people who teach us how. Amen." "Amen," we echoed. As we passed dishes and laughed and talked, I looked around the table. Brandon, who'd learned to see me again, Chloe, who'd found her strength, Ryan, who was growing into a good man, Dr. Chen, who'd guided us through the darkness, and Frank's chair, a reminder that love doesn't end, it transforms. After dinner, while Chloe and Brandon did dishes together, sharing the work, Ryan came to find me on the back porch. "Grandma, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you still have those earrings? The pearl ones from the day I—" He couldn't finish the sentence. I pulled them from my pocket. I'd been carrying them with me today, knowing this moment might come. "I had them repaired," I said, showing him. "See, the jeweler welded the posts back together stronger than before." Ryan touched them gently. They're beautiful. You know what the jeweler told me? I asked. What? He said pearls that survive damage and get repaired become stronger. The repair becomes part of their story, part of their beauty. Ryan looked at me with those wise 10-year-old eyes, like our family. Exactly like our family. He hugged me tight. I love you, Grandma. I love you too, sunshine. Always. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat in my room with my journal. Dear Frank, we made it. I made it. This family broke, but it didn't shatter. We took the pieces and put them back together, and yes, you can see the cracks, but they're part of our story now. Brandon sees me, really sees me, not just as a mother or a bank account, but as a whole person with needs and boundaries and worth. Chloe and I have coffee every week. She's teaching me about social media. I'm teaching her about self-worth that doesn't depend on likes and followers. We're becoming friends. And Ryan, oh Frank Ryan, is gonna be okay. Better than okay. He's learning kindness and responsibility, and that strength means protecting people, not hurting them. I almost gave up, almost walked away, almost let them destroy themselves just to prove a point. But I'm glad I didn't, because this sitting here in this house that's finally starting to feel like a home again, knowing I'm valued and respected and loved, this is worth fighting for. They asked me today if I'd thought about getting my own place again. You know what I said? Not yet, maybe someday. But for now, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, because family isn't about living in the same house. It's about showing up for each other even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. I miss you, my love, every day, but I think you'd be proud of me. I finally taught them what you tried to teach me all those years ago. Respect isn't something you can buy or demand. It's something you earn by being brave enough to require it. Until we meet again, your Josie. I closed the journal and looked out the window at the November stars. Somewhere in the house I heard laughter, real, genuine laughter, the sound of a family healing. The loan was half paid off. Ryan was thriving. Brandon and Chloe were partners now, not just people living parallel lives. And me, I was no longer invisible. I was seen. I was heard. I was valued. And that was worth more than any amount of money in the bank. Because sometimes the greatest act of love isn't giving everything away. Sometimes it's teaching people that you deserve to be treated well. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is simply say, enough, and mean it. Epilogue. 6 months later, Ryan's 7th grade graduation. He's valedictorian. His speech topic, the grandmother who taught me strength. I sit in the audience between Brandon and Chloe, both of them holding my hands. When Ryan reaches the part about second chances and families that choose to heal instead of break, I cry. But these are good tears, the kind that wash things clean.